Hi everyone and welcome to Soccer North. Now do me a favor, check your pulse. Is it okay? Is it normal? Because after the weekend, the nerves of Canadian soccer fans are frayed. We have updates on the injuries of Alphonso Davies and Max Crépeau. How stressed are athletes about getting injured before a massive tournament? My good friend, Olympic bronze medalist Kaylyn Kyle will drop by to tell us. And we'll talk about the changes she wants to see in Canada soccer. Before hopping on a plane to make her way to Brazil, the greatest of all time, Christine Sinclair, was in this very studio, to talk about her new book. And I'm really excited to talk to Liverpool FC keeper Rylee Foster. The Cambridge, Ontario native broke her neck in a serious car crash a year ago. She's determined to get back on the pitch. It's time to check in on some other Canadian players making waves around the world in a segment you can't get enough of. Let's go. We're keeping up with the Canadians. Let's start with the nerve-wracking news from the weekend in the Alphonso Davies injury. Fans of the national team held their breath as Davies pulled up with a hamstring injury and had to be helped off the pitch in a league match with Bayern Munich. The next day, the team updated Fonzie's status, and it's somewhat good news. They said Davies will miss the club's next 2 matches, but the hamstring strain should not impact his availability for Canada at the World Cup. I mean, good to hear, but let's be honest, the next 2 weeks we'll be biting our nails praying there is no setback. And this isn't exactly the end of the week that Fonzie wanted after celebrating his 22nd birthday. Happy belated, by the way. In action on the final match day of Champions League group stage was Stefan Eustachio's FC Porto, who were taking on Atletico Madrid. He scored his 2nd Champions League goal in back-to-back weeks. His 24th minute game winner led Porto to a 2-1 win over the Spanish side, as Porto finished first in their group, thanks to contributions from their Canadian midfielder. And he's getting attention in unlikely places, garnering this reaction from former Man City legend and CBS Sports commentator Micah Richards.
Of course, who was it? It was that man, Eustachio, and it was absolutely fantastical. What will he be eating now? Carpaccio, Thierry.
It was a big week for Canadian midfielder Jessie Fleming, who announced she's re-signing with Chelsea for another 2 seasons. She'll be with the club until the summer of 2025. On to some more Canadian women's national team updates. Centre back Vanessa Gilles started and played the full 90 minutes for Lyon as they drew Guingamp. It's good to see her back healthy and earning starts after being loaned from Angel City FC to Lyon in the fall. Benfica's Chloe Lacasse scored again this past week in the Lisbon derby as Benfica defeated Sporting by a score of 2-1 and are now 6-0 on the season, tied for first in the Portuguese top division. Over in Sweden, Canadian Women's Player of the Month Evelyn Vienne scored 2 goals in a 4-1 Kristianstad win over Umeå. She now has 21 goals in 26 matches in the Swedish top flight. Next up, Vancouver BC's Julia Grosso played 65 minutes in the Italian Super Cup final in a losing effort as Juventus lost to Roma in penalty kicks 4-3. And fresh off winning her 3rd NWSL title, Christine Sinclair sent Providence Park into a frenzy, announcing she'd be back for another season, and she did it in style.
And Seattle.
Parade sound bites are the best sound bites. Now, how about that MLS Cup final? It's already being called the best final in the league's history. Goals, red card, extra time, a tying goal by Gareth Bale in the 128th minute, and a backup keeper getting the job done in penalties. Canadian keeper Max Crépeau got the start in this one as his LAFC took on the Philadelphia Union, and he made a game-saving challenge on an underhit back pass that was a surefire scoring chance for the Union late in extra time. He comes up big to keep the game tied 2-2, but he immediately calls for help. Crépeau suffered a fractured leg that left viewers in shock. He had to be carted off the field and received a red card for the game-saving challenge. But despite being a man down, LAFC defeated the Union in penalty kicks. And post-match, teammates of Crépeau were seen FaceTiming him while he was being treated in hospital, and he even took to Instagram from his hospital bed to celebrate the moment. During the offseason, Crépeau gambled and asked for a trade from the Vancouver Whitecaps, and it paid off. He and LAFC captured the Supporters' Shield as the top team in the league at the end of the regular season, and then won the franchise's first MLS Cup. But the win does come at a price for Crépeau, who will now miss the World Cup. He played a huge role in helping Canada qualify. We wish him a speedy recovery. I'm telling you now, you do not want to miss next week's show. I mean, today's show was awesome. All the shows are great. But next week, November 18th, we'll play the conversation I had with head coach John Herdman. Here's a taste of that interview. What's that lasting legacy you want to leave behind for Canadians?
I think we're evolving in a new generation, a new society, and probably breaking away from that conservative Canadian DNA. That's, I think this team with the Alphonso Davies, the Johnnies, etc. I mean, they're stepping into new territory, new ground. That they're taking our sport to a new stratosphere. And I think the team made a commitment about New Canada. They wanted to show New Canada on the field. They wanted to do things differently. And it's trying to push the next generation, the youth, into that space, that, getting them to believe that, anything is possible as a Canadian footballer.
Someone who knows John Herdman well, played under him, and also won an Olympic bronze medal. That would be Kaylyn Kyle, now turned broadcaster. Really appreciate you taking the time here on Soccer North. But I have to pick your brain from a player's perspective. We've already talked about Alphonso Davies, Max Crépeau, the injuries they're dealing with. There have been other international stars whose World Cup could be in jeopardy. How stressful is it for a player when you know a big tournament's coming on up and you need to stay healthy?
Yeah, it's honestly probably one of the worst feelings in the world, but it's also a different beast this time around because the World Cup is getting played mid-season for most of these players that play in European leagues. Obviously, MLS just finishing, losing Max in the final was absolutely heartbreaking and devastating, to say the least. These players are literally looking at this in a different way because for me personally, I would have loved to have seen them take probably an extra 2 weeks off leading into this World Cup due to the fact that there is so many games leading into it. I think they have only 2 weeks before the World Cup. So as a player, you're going in, and I know this sounds so bad because they get paid multi-millions of dollars, but it's almost like, do I maybe just fake an injury? Because the World Cup, I know that sounds so bad, but the World Cup only comes around every 4 years. I know that there was a lot of talk around Alphonso Davies and Bayern Munich and, Bayern Munich overusing him and overplaying him. Well, let's be realistic here. They're paying his contract. They don't care about the national team. They don't care if they do well as a nation at the World Cup. They want to lift titles. They want to lift trophies. They want to get to Champions League finals. So you can't blame these clubs for playing these players.
They want to stay healthy. They also want to be match fit. So we know that the men actually have 2 friendlies before the World Cup begins. The game against Bahrain, we know, is for a lot of those players whose seasons have ended, mostly Major League Soccer players. And then there's that game on November 17th where they're hoping a lot of the European squad will be there. What are you hoping to see in those 2 games? Like, what are you looking out for that will tell you something about Canada as they get ready to play Belgium?
That they stay healthy. I think we already know what we know of Canada. We know that they're well organized. We know that they have some of the top players in the world. We know that defensively, we're probably one of the most adaptable teams in CONCACAF. They proved that in CONCACAF. So for me, I've seen what I've needed to see from Canada. You look at Jonathan David playing over in Lille in the French league, and he's on fire at the moment. So the important players are playing so well. Alphonso Davies absolutely on fire in the Bundesliga. So you look at the players that need to step up for Canada to do well, and they have been. So these games for me is, like you just alluded to, the players in maybe Major League Soccer that got knocked out early, weren't in the playoff race, didn't have those extra games that just finished last weekend to get those 90-minute match fitness performances and maybe give the players in Europe a little bit of a breather, a little bit of a break, maybe get them 10 minutes of a run out at the end of it. But for me, I think I've seen everything I've seen in Canada. Obviously, you want to win these games. You want to put the ball into the back of the net. You don't want to concede because you want to go into the World Cup in the best mindset possible.
And we know that there have been a lot of calls for change at Canada Soccer, and you're someone who's dealt with them when you were a player, and I'm sure continue to do so as you continue to cover the national team. What are some changes you would like to see? Maybe even some personnel, former players, I don't know, some other, alumni type of group that's set up. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth because maybe these are some of the things I would like to see. But what are just some of the things you would like to see, those changes with Canada Soccer to really push it forward?
Yeah, look, I've been really vocal about it. And I think it's the one point in my career where I've been able to, because when you're playing for the national team, you can't really be vocal in top change. You can be vocal in the little things, the fights behind the scenes, but when it comes to change from the top, I've been very vocal about that, because speaking to former players, speaking to current players, speaking to people that are working in and around the scenes of it, there's no trust. You can't go online and you can't buy jerseys. And everyone says, oh, you know, the money, that the men are being selfish in that, asking for that money. That happens everywhere around the world. But you have to do the business model correctly. You have to have jerseys that you're able to sell. That's where a lot of your profit comes from. So when your business aspect isn't right and your business aspect isn't progressing the way it should, I mean, it's time to give your head a shake. Like, it's just, for me, I'm like, it's like banging my head against a brick wall, because there's no answers. There's no communication. There's no transparency. And for me, it doesn't feel like anything's changing. So for me, you've got to start from the top. You've got to clean stuff out. You've got to have former players that, you know, are doing business school, that are qualified for this. Women, men. I'm not saying it has to be women. I'm not saying it has to be men. People that are willing to put Canada Soccer first, and put these players first, and put the organization first, instead of putting themselves first. I think that is the most important thing. And it's not like we don't have the people to do it.
Well, the spotlight is on them, and it's on them because current players and former players like yourself keep the conversation going. So we appreciate everything that you continue to do for the sport, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Andi.
Canadian striker Christine Sinclair's impact on soccer in this country cannot be overstated. The undisputed greatest of all time now has 3 NWSL titles, Olympic gold, and is the sport's all-time leading goal scorer. It's her first book, Playing the Long Game by Christine Sinclair, and that's who's joining us now. I am so happy that you're here live and in person.
Thanks for having me.
It is so great to have you here. And I was asking you, because I said, just to confirm, right, this is your first book, and you broke out into a sweat.
Yeah,
you're
like that,
yeah.
Absolutely. First one.
How did it
maybe
feel?
a kid's book down the line.
Yeah, ooh, I'd love to see a little kid's book. But how did it feel to just put emotions on paper?
It wasn't the best experience. Obviously, Stephen, he's done a ton of these and helped. But I am a private, quiet person. And I'm sure there were days where he was like, oh my God, this is going to take forever. But we got through it.
You did. It's beautifully written, your emotions, how you felt during certain games, and then to your point, how you felt in private moments in your life. Because we had always heard about what was happening kind of here and there with your mom, your dad, and this is the first time you talk about it.
Yeah.
And you start off with the dedication on your mom. How important was it to share even just a little bit of their story and what they meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, I went into it a little bit, but obviously they're the 2 most influential people in my life, and it has been a struggle. We've obviously faced family issues, and especially for my mom, all the work I do with the MS Society, I think it was vital that it went into the book. And unfortunately, while writing the book, she passed away. So it was important to at least share to the world how much they meant to me.
I don't know if it was a coincidence, but when you dove in a little bit more about them, it was chapter 12. That's your number that you wear.
I never actually thought of that.
No.
So you caught something.
I'm big on numbers. I'm always a believer.
I never thought of that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, when you dove in, that's the chapter where you talk a little bit more about them was number 12. And I wasn't sure if that was intentional.
I did not even, no.
Okay, now I'm getting goosebumps on
weird.
that.
That's weird.
Because, yes, I love it when things align that way. And obviously, there's John Herdman, who comes on board in 2012. I don't think it would be fair to compare, like, how does he compare to Evan? But what did he mean even for you personally?
John, he's one of those coaches that just gets you. And he got our team, and he got me individually, and he inherited a team that had just finished dead last at a World Cup that was broken. You know, you had half the team questioning, like, why the heck am I doing this anymore? Like, you're not making a ton of money, like, you're missing out on family things, like, is it worth it? And he helped us, like, rediscover our why and our passion, kind of brought us back to that little kid that fell in love with the sport. And we went on and built from there, and it's the culture he creates. I mean, you see it in the men's team now, that brotherhood, and the 2012 London Olympic team. It's It's one I'll never forget. We would do absolutely anything for each other, and he created that.
Again, 3 medals, culminates in this gold medal as well in Tokyo. And I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times, but anything in particular that really stands out when Julia Grosso finally gets that goal that seals the gold? Change the color. There's your other mantra, right?
Anything that stands out, it just was a blur, honestly. Like, I've had the honor of representing Canada for a long time, and I never thought we would stand on the top of a podium. And to have that dream come true with some of your best friends, you fought through everything to get to that, and to have Julia step up, this young kid, sure, all that, it's just a blur. And the pictures, the videos after, it's just raw emotion, everything we've gone through. And then, I just remember their goalkeeper punting the ball, and I'm like, I gotta get that. And I still have that. It's in my house.
Do you have the ball?
Oh,
I love it.
Absolutely. The CSA has been like, I'm like, no, that's mine. I've earned that.
It's in case there's a lock. Goodbye.
Yeah,
You're not touching that
mine.
ball. We've seen your role change, obviously a little bit at the pro and national team level, but here you are setting records, 3rd record title in WSL, setting the record for playoff minutes as well in NWSL. What would you say the difference was, though, with this title with Portland, with having Karina, Rhian, and Janine Becky with you?
This one was special for a lot of reasons. Just the growth of the league. I think back to year 1 when we won it as well, to year 10, and just the exposure, the opportunities. I mean, it being on prime time, major network, it just felt like a championship and where women's soccer should be. So there's that. And then to be able to share it with Karina, Rhian, Janine. I mean, these are some of my best friends. Karina and Rhian have been some of my best friends since I was 16. And to be able to play for them and to be able to, bring that little bit of Canada down to Portland was a blast.
You've been such a bright light for them. You've been such a bright light for this nation. Thank you for opening up because people love you, and they obviously, want to know more about you because of the love and respect they have for you and what you do every time you wear the maple leaf. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Canadian keeper Rylee Foster has had a journey unlike many other soccer prospects. In 2021, while on international break in Finland, Foster was in a car crash that resulted in multiple career and life-threatening injuries. The 24-year-old Liverpool keeper has shared her journey on TikTok and is our next guest on Soccer North. It is so great to have Rylee Foster join Soccer North. But before we get started, Rylee, I want you to show a tattoo. I know you have a couple of them, but let's see the one on your arm there that says 10:16. And that has meaning because it was October 16, 2021 at 10:16 p.m. that you were on an international break, you were in Finland, you were on your way to a Drake concert with some friends when you had the car accident. You've said, I should have been dead. What has it been like since that moment?
It's been crazy. I mean, you go through a roller coaster of emotions when you kind of go through a traumatic event as such. And when you talk about near-death experience and when you're privileged to have life, you don't really understand what that means until you go through it. So for me personally, it's been challenging to say the least. I think the first 9 months were really hard, just being immobile, not really myself, not feeling like the athlete I've always been, or just fit in general. But the last 4 months have been really, really progressive, being in the gym, rehabbing, working hard, and I'm just seeing a lot more strides forward than I used to see backwards. So although it's been really challenging, it's been really positive, and I've learned a lot about myself through the whole process.
Speaking of tattoos, playing for Liverpool, they play the song, they sing the song to their players, "You'll Never Walk Alone." That too is a tattoo that you have. You actually got that after your grandmother passed away in 2013. How supportive has the club been during this journey?
It's been amazing. I couldn't have wished for or hoped for a better situation possible. Like, the club from minute one were right beside me with anything and everything I can need. They helped my family, they helped myself, they've helped me travel, they've helped my sister and I travel. Everything's just been really forward. And that could be different in a lot of women's sports, and you never know what could happen. I think I was one of the things I was scared about was, am I going to have a contract at the end of the day? Am I going to be able to get back and do my rehab with them? But Liverpool was guaranteed me 100% safety and security, and have been nothing but supportive. Along with the club, the fans have been absolutely amazing, and I couldn't thank them enough.
You've documented your journey the last year on social media. Why was it important for you to have others see what you were going through and also see the progress you're making?
I think for me, it's a matter of just being honest and transparent with what I'm going through. A lot of people may go through trauma, but no one really knows the journey and the ins and outs of it. And then on top of that, it's also something for me to look back upon. The other day, I found myself looking at my Instagram feed, just scrolling to see how fragile and thin I looked and how ill I looked. But now I look at myself now and I feel so much stronger and more powerful. So a bit of it's for everyone else to see, and I hope to inspire one person at least, but also for myself to look back upon and say, you've done it and you're still doing it and you've come so far.
You are an inspiration, and you've been working hard. You've represented Canada at the youth level, and you had received a senior call-up as well before, the accident happened. What's the goal from a pro standpoint? Obviously, wanting to get back on the pitch with Liverpool, and just kind of where do you also see yourself in representing Canada?
Yeah, I've made the 100% commitment to make the full return to football. For a while, it was up in the air, just not sure what was best for my health and longevity, but I owe it to myself. I'm not going to do all this work for nothing, but reality is I'm really pushing for the Olympics with the national team. I was really close to the last cycle, and I just hope that I can get back as match fit as I can, get some games in my belt, and hopefully Bev will call me back into camp and I can prove myself again. But all truth is I'm just happy to be able to have the opportunity to return, that I'm healthy enough and fit enough to even say these words, because there was a time where I honestly had no clue if that was going to be possible, and many people didn't either.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. You're looking fantastic. You're right, because you've been able to document it. We've also been able to see the progress that you've made, and we really want to see you between the sticks. Rylee, appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
For a long time now, Canada's been building towards being a soccer nation. Bottom line is you need your teams to succeed. Women have been doing that for a while, and the men have started doing that recently. And I think what's beautiful about our country is that it's multicultural, and you have a lot of people coming into the country where soccer is in their blood. So it's just feeding it. It's just natural, beautiful. For more great Soccer North content, be sure to follow CBC Sports on TikTok. You can also get caught up on any episodes you might have missed by downloading the free CBC Gem app or going to the CBC Sports YouTube channel. Let's take a look at what we have coming up in the next few weeks on Soccer North. We have just one more episode before the World Cup, which starts on November 20th. After that, we'll be live post-match for all of Canada's games in Qatar. We may even have a big surprise for you before the World Cup begins. We will. Anyone gonna tell me what that surprise is? No? All right. Well, I guess we both have to make sure we don't miss a minute of Soccer North. So download the CBC Gem app and subscribe to CBC Sports YouTube channel. Thank you to Christine Sinclair, Kaylyn Kyle, and Rylee Foster, and a big congrats to Max Crépeau on his MLS Cup. See you next week.